They called me Coach Trash until I bought the plane they work on. It's funny how people see your skin before they see your seat. Even funnier how a uniform can convince someone they're better than you. That day, all I wanted was to get home, sit in my seat, close my eyes, and breathe. But instead, I became a spectacle, a joke, and a lesson. Live and in color. On the concourse of Dallas Fort Worth International Airport. It started with a look. Just a look. I'd walked up to the first class gate wearing my hoodie, black joggers, and scuffed sneakers. Nothing fancy. I travel light, no gold chains, no monogrammed luggage, just a leather carry on and a boarding pass that said Seat 1A. First class, window seat, that's me. Jonathan Miles. The woman behind the counter barely glanced at my ticket, but she gave me a full inspection, top to bottom, like I was a math problem she couldn't solve. And in her eyes, the numbers didn't add up. Black man, no suit, first class, nah. Something's wrong. She tilted her head and smiled that corporate smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Sir, are you lost? Coach is boarding from gate C17. No, I replied calmly. This is the right gate. First class to Miami. 7:45 a.m. I'm in 1A. Her eyebrows rose so high I thought they might leave her forehead. She took my ticket slowly, like it might be fake, counterfeit, or contagious. 1 second, two. Then she laughed. Not out loud, but enough to show she thought this was a joke. Just making sure, she said. We've had a few people try to sneak up front today. She didn't even try to whisper. Didn't care who heard. I could feel eyes burning into me from the boarding area. Some stared. Some smirked. One guy even shook his head like I had tried to pull a fast one and got caught. I stood there swallowing that invisible lump that always shows up in these moments, the one that tastes like shame, rage, and history. This wasn't new. It wasn't even rare. But what made it different, what made it sting, was how casual it was. Like she'd done this before. Like I was just another name on her checklist of who doesn't belong. Still, I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, didn't flex. I just said, you might want to scan that again. She huffed, scanned the ticket, and then something shifted. Her posture, her eyes, her mouth twitched like it wanted to apologize but couldn't remember how. Oh, she said, softer now. You're, uh, all set. I nodded. No thanks. No smile. Just walked through like I hadn't just been reduced to nothing in front of 24 strangers. But the story doesn't end there. Because what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't just a passenger. I was her boss. And that flight was about to change everything. It wasn't always like this. There was a time I would have walked right past first class and not even glanced at it. Head down, backpack tight against my spine, hoping no one asked me if I was lost. But that was a lifetime ago. Before the startups, before the buyouts, before I stopped apologizing for taking up space. My name's Jonathan Miles, born in Shreveport, Louisiana. Raised by a single mother who worked nights cleaning banks and days cleaning homes. We didn't have much, but we had rules. Respect your elders, finish what you start, and never ever let anyone else define your worth. My mom used to say, son, if they don't see your value, you show them the receipt. And I did. I built my first app in a public library on a borrowed Chromebook. By the time I was 25, I had sold my second company to a West Coast hedge fund for 7 figures. And when my third venture got picked up by a logistics giant, I didn't spend the money on Lamborghinis or yachts. I bought equity, stocks, real estate, and eventually a seat on the investor board of Horizon Sky Airlines. Yeah, that airline. The same one where I was being treated like a stowaway. I never flaunted my wealth, that wasn't my style. I lived clean, moved quiet. People mistook me for a nobody all the time. And honestly, I preferred it that way. But sometimes, the world won't let you be invisible. Sometimes it drags you into the spotlight kicking and screaming, just to remind you that in their eyes, no matter how far you've come, you still don't belong. I didn't board the flight right away. I stood near the windows at the gate, staring out at the tarmac, pretending to watch the plane's taxi. In truth, I was trying to calm my nerves, not because I was scared, Because I was boiling. The kind of heat that makes your skin feel tight. The kind that comes from knowing you have every right to be somewhere and still being told you don't. I checked my phone. No new messages. The Horizon Investor audit reports were due next week, and this particular flight, Flight 839 to Miami, was one I'd flagged for anonymous review. There had been several passenger complaints on this route. Unexplained reassignments, rude service, subtle bias. But you can't act on rumors. You have to see it for yourself. So I decided to see it. No assistance, no alerts to the staff, just me dressed down with nothing but a first-class ticket and a sharp eye. I hadn't planned on being tested before I even boarded, but here we were. I turned around, watching the same gate agent who had just tried to redirect me to coach, now smiling and handing boarding passes to the line of passengers behind me. None of whom looked like me, not one. And not a single one of them got questioned. I exhaled slow, walked to the jet bridge. My grip tightened on the handle of my bag. The moment my foot hit the bridge's metal ramp, the memory of my mother's voice echoed in my mind again. Let them talk, baby. One day, they'll work for you. I didn't know it yet, but she was about to be more right than ever. She didn't see me coming. Not really. When I finally stepped back toward the gate for boarding, my name had just been called along with the other first-class passengers. The gate agent was now standing straighter, voice sweeter, the performance crisp. But when she saw me re-enter the line, that sugary voice soured like spoiled milk. Sir, she called out, raising her arm slightly, as if I'd just tried to sneak into a secure zone. Boarding is for first class at this time. I looked her dead in the eye, calm, collected. I know. She tilted her head again. That same condescending concern she'd worn earlier, now full-on weaponized. Are you traveling with someone in first class? She asked. Because this line is... I heard you the first time. I cut in, softly but firmly. I'm Jonathan Miles. I'm traveling alone. Seat 1A. A flicker of something passed over her face. Annoyance, disbelief, maybe both. She pressed her lips into a line and reached for the scanner like she was doing me a favor. Her tone dropped half an octave, now more clipped. I just want to be sure. We've had issues before. People using standby passes trying to slip into premium seats. The man behind me, a tall white guy in a Patagonia jacket, chuckled softly. You're not the only one, huh? He said to her. They shared a look, a smirk. I said nothing, just handed her the pass. She scanned it. Beep. Green light, all clear. She paused, confused. Looked down at her screen. Looked back up at me. No apology. No backpedaling. Just an awkward, half-hearted, you're all set? I didn't move. I leaned in slightly, lowered my voice. You said people like me try to sneak into first class? She blinked. I didn't say. You implied it. Twice. She glanced around, suddenly aware of the silence growing around us. People were watching. The air had shifted. Still, her pride wouldn't let her back down. I'm just doing my job, sir. Are you? I said. Or are you making assumptions based on how someone looks? That shut her up. I took my boarding pass back and stepped onto the jet bridge, walking slowly. Not out of spite, but because I wanted every passenger behind me to see me walk through that gate, carry-on in hand, head held high, not a single damn thing to hide. That's when I heard her mutter it. Just loud enough. Every time. Always trying something. I stopped cold. My hand gripped the side of the wall. My pulse thudded in my ears. I turned around. There were at least a dozen people behind me in line. Business travelers, retirees, a young mother with a baby. All frozen. All listening. I don't know who you think I am, I said, voice low, sharp. But I promise you, you'll remember me. And I meant it. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I needed to prove a point. But because this wasn't going to be another silent slap I swallowed. This was going on record. She didn't know it, but she had just stepped into the middle of an audit. And the worst part, she had just failed the easiest test of her career. I stepped onto the jet bridge, each footfall echoing in my ears like a drumbeat. I wasn't angry in the way people imagine. Loud, explosive. I was angry in that quiet, dangerous way. The kind that grows cold, focused, calculated. Halfway down, I stopped. My hands shook just slightly. Not from fear, no, I'd had enough of that growing up, but from restraint, from knowing exactly how easily I could make this go away or escalate it, but I didn't get to choose. Not anymore. Behind me, the footsteps quickened. I turned my head just enough to see the gate agent hurrying toward me with two TSA officers flanking her like I just tried to smuggle a bomb aboard. Sir! She called, loud enough for passengers still seated in the terminal to turn their heads. I need you to step aside. We need to verify your boarding information. I turned slowly. You already scanned my pass. It's valid. The taller TSA officer nodded. We understand, sir, but we've been asked to confirm your travel credentials. Just a quick check. A quick check. Like I was an ID tag dangling off a stolen suitcase. Passengers waiting in the adjacent boarding line began whispering. A kid with a cell phone aimed it right at me, recording. A man 2 rows back muttered, "Here we go again." And in that moment, God help me, I almost crumbled. Not from guilt, but from the humiliation. From knowing that even with money, status, ownership, I was still suspect number one because I didn't match the image in their heads. I breathed deep, pulled out my ID, my phone, opened the Horizon Sky Investor app, clicked through to the private dashboard. This, I said, holding it out for all three of them to see, is my seat. 1A. And this, I tapped the header. My name displayed in bold under the Executive Investors tab, is your employer's oversight portal. My name is Jonathan Miles. I sit on the board. The woman paled. She didn't say a word. The TSA guards looked at each other like someone had just pulled the emergency exit handle midair. One of them took a breath. Apologies, Mr. Miles. We weren't aware of. I know you weren't. Behind me, the line had gone dead quiet. People stared, some ashamed, some just fascinated by the car crash unfolding before them. The gate agent took a cautious step forward. Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. You didn't care to realize. I interrupted. You assumed. You embarrassed me. You called security. You made me a spectacle. My voice didn't rise, but it filled the space. I turned to the rest of the passengers still queued in line. Just so everyone knows, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break any rules. I showed my pass. I followed the instructions. And still I was treated like a criminal for sitting in the seat I paid for. That I own. Someone in the line muttered, "Damn right." Another added, "That's messed up, but I wasn't doing this for validation. I was doing it so she would never forget the feeling she put me through." The silence was deafening. I turned and walked onto the plane. Slowly, deliberately, like I was carrying the weight of 1,000 similar moments I'd survived. And as I passed through the first-class cabin, the crew froze. The same woman who had laughed when I approached the gate was now frozen in place, her smile gone. Her lips parted slightly, like she'd seen a ghost. I took my seat, 1A window side. The man across the aisle gave me a nod. That was something, man. I said nothing, because the show wasn't over. It hadn't even started yet. I settled into my seat and let the silence wrap around me like armor. The flight attendant at the front, same one who had sized me up from behind the gate, stood paralyzed. Her jaw worked, trying to form something, anything, but no sound came out. I looked right at her. She quickly turned away, fidgeting with a tray that didn't need adjusting. My phone buzzed. A notification from the airline's internal ops portal confirmed what I already knew. Flight 839 was flagged for observational audit. The irony wasn't lost on me. I reached for my tablet and pulled up the profile file that had her name on it. Madison Lee, Gate and Cabin Crew, DFW Terminal C. It wasn't my first time seeing her name. Passenger feedback reports from the last 3 months had flagged curt behavior, unnecessary questioning, and unexplained downgrades, all linked to her. I'd made a mental note of it. Nothing actionable. Until now. Now it was personal. She walked down the aisle finally, cheeks blotched red under her makeup. Her voice barely met the row. "Can I offer you a beverage, Mr. Miles?" Her tone had changed completely. Sweet now. Careful. I didn't answer right away. I looked at her like I was considering it. Like she was offering me more than just a drink. "Still water, no ice," I said, without breaking eye contact. She nodded fast, turned, and nearly bumped into another crew member trying to get past. The guy seated behind me whispered, "What the hell did you say to her?" I turned my head slightly. I said my name. The whisper spread like wildfire. Someone 2 rows up gasped audibly. A woman across the aisle mouthed, "He's on the board!" The rest of the cabin caught on fast. A couple of people looked up my name on their phones. One passenger near the emergency exit even pulled up a Forbes article with my face on it. Jonathan Miles, the silent force behind Horizon Sky's tech leap. The energy shifted. The curious looks turned into nervous smiles. A few people even gave those tight corporate nods usually reserved for partners at a law firm or billionaires at galas. And as for Madison, she came back with the water, hands trembling slightly as she handed it to me like it might explode. I truly apologize for the confusion earlier, she said, voice low and syrupy. It wasn't my intention to profile me, I offered. She blinked, eyes wide, like she wasn't expecting me to say it out loud. I took the water, set it on the tray table, and said, "Let's not waste time pretending it was something else." She opened her mouth, closed it, nodded, then walked away without another word. From my seat, I had a clear view of the galley where she and the other attendants congregated. I could see the whispers, the wide eyes, the frantic glances in my direction. One of them checked a crew tablet. Another quickly messaged someone. Panic! That's when the purser came to my seat. He was older, smoother, clearly coached in the art of corporate survival. "Mr. Miles, I just want to personally extend our deepest apologies on behalf of the team. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to make your flight more comfortable." I sipped my water. Comfort was never the issue, but I'll be making notes. He nodded slowly, sensing the weight of that sentence. There was a reason I flew unannounced. I never wanted fake smiles or overcompensation. I wanted honesty. Because the truth always leaks out when people think you're nobody. This flight was never about just getting to Miami. It was about peeling back the polite layers of performance and seeing what people really thought. How they really treated those who didn't look like the blueprint of privilege. And today, I didn't have to dig deep. They gave me everything I needed before the wheels even left the ground. We were 37 minutes into the flight when I opened the Horizon Sky audit portal on my tablet and began typing. Cabin lighting dimmed, engines humming, everything around me calm. But inside, I was compiling an incident report that would land like a bomb on someone's career. I didn't type like a man with a grudge. I typed like a man with evidence. Precise, clean, no dramatics, just the facts. Time-stamped, documented, behavior at gate, unprovoked escalation, language used, coded bias, assumption of deceit, public embarrassment conducted in front of TSA and fellow passengers, emotional impact, substantial. Every few lines, I'd pause, not because I wasn't sure what to write, but because I had too much I could write. I could have gone on for paragraphs about how common this was, about how I'd been mistaken for a valet, a porter, and a janitor in lobbies where I was the keynote speaker. But I stuck to the facts. Facts hurt more in corporate reports. They cut cleaner, leave a trail. I glanced up. Madison was in the galley, arms folded tight across her chest, jaw tight. She knew. Not everything, but enough to feel the weight of what she'd done. The other crew members whispered near her like they were orbiting a fallen star. Close, but afraid to touch. The man next to me leaned over slightly. "Did I hear right? You're one of the owners of the airline?" "Investor board," I said, "one of 6. He whistled under his breath. Hell of a way to keep your employees honest. That's the idea. The truth was, I'd pushed hard for anonymous observation initiatives within Horizon's leadership. Too many surveys and customer service scripts gave us half-truths. Too many employees knew when they were being watched. But this moment, this was raw. This was real. I clicked into the internal performance tracking system and attached Madison's employee ID to a priority flag. Not termination, yet, but review. Her file already had notes, and now it had my name stamped on it. That alone would ring alarms in HR by morning. I kept my face neutral as I worked, even while I felt the crew's eyes on me. They passed by slowly now. Polite, accommodating. One of them offered me a second warm towel. Another, unsolicited, brought over a small bottle of champagne with compliments from the captain. I declined. Not out of spite, just clarity. I didn't want their bribes. I wanted accountability. My phone vibrated again. A message from Celeste Ramos, the Horizon Sky Chief Operating Officer. She was on the audit chain, had been overseeing our silent observation program. Heard about the incident, already briefed. Want to debrief tonight? I typed back. Yes, let's make it a full compliance review. This route, this terminal. Start with DFW's crew rotation sheets. We're going wide. Celeste didn't ask why. She trusted my judgment. And she knew if I was this direct, it was serious. I looked out the window. Sunlight was breaking over the clouds, casting long rays over the wing. From 35,000 feet, everything below looked small. Tiny roads, ant-sized buildings, little dots moving like they meant something. But I knew better. It's not the view from the sky that makes a man powerful. It's what he does when someone tries to clip his wings. And I wasn't done flying. Not yet. The cabin lights dimmed further as we leveled off at cruising altitude. Outside, the clouds looked like soft landmines floating across a glowing sky. But inside the cabin, the tension had thickened into something almost solid. Madison hadn't come back to my row since the water. She was now working the coach section, likely by her own request. I could see her shadow moving behind the curtain every few minutes, her figure stiff, motions robotic. Word travels fast on planes. And faster than Wi-Fi. She knew the walls were closing in. I leaned back, closed my eyes for a second, but my mind kept playing that moment on repeat. The way she laughed under her breath when I presented my ticket. The smirk she gave that Patagonia guy, like I was a stray dog sniffing at the wrong table. My phone buzzed again. New message. Internal. HR Escalation Team. Subject line, immediate review, Madison Lee, incident report A39, DFW, MIA. I tapped into it. The body of the email was brief. Mr. Miles, per your attached statement and our rapid compliance review, we are initiating formal disciplinary action. Based on the prior 3 complaints logged against this employee and today's filed audit report, HR is recommending termination effective immediately. Please confirm. I stared at that last sentence. Please confirm. I was being handed her career on a silver platter. The weight of it didn't escape me. This wasn't revenge. This was responsibility. I clicked into her history. 3 prior incidents, all similar in tone. Guests of color reporting cold service, extra questioning. One case even involved an upgrade denial without explanation. Nothing had been enough to push formal action until now. I took a breath, typed confirmed, proceed per HR protocol. I clicked send. The turbulence began almost on cue. Nothing major, just a rough shudder through the belly of the plane, like the sky itself had flinched. The captain's voice came through the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a patch of rough air. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. The passengers obeyed. The hum of conversations lowered. Trays secured, headphones removed, seats upright. I glanced over at the curtain. No movement now. No sign of Madison. Then came a knock at the cockpit door. The purser, calmer now, walked toward me again. His face looked like he'd aged 5 years since takeoff. Mr. Miles? He said softly, crouching slightly so we could speak without the whole cabin listening. The captain just received a message from Horizon Sky HQ. They're rerouting this crew upon arrival. Miss Lee will be debriefed immediately after landing. I nodded. Good. She seems shaken, he added. I think she realizes what she's done. I sipped the water, now lukewarm. That's between her and the mirror. The purser didn't argue, just stood slowly, nodded again, and walked away. I looked back out the window. I wasn't proud of any of this. I wasn't sitting there feeling victorious, but I wasn't sorry either. This wasn't just about one flight attendant. It was about all the people who get sized up at counters, stared down at gates, whispered about behind kiosk screens. This was for the business traveler who dresses down to rest and ends up profiled. For the student with a scholarship in first class who gets mistaken for someone's assistant. For every single black man or woman who has ever been told you're in the wrong place simply because someone decided they didn't fit. The clouds outside were breaking. Light poured in, soft and golden. We were descending soon, and by the time we landed, One of us would be walking out lighter, and the other would be walking out unemployed. The wheels touched down in Miami with a muted thud, the kind that rattles your ribs more than your seat. The cabin lights returned to full brightness, and the passengers stirred as if waking from a collective dream. People stretched, adjusted headphones, reached for overhead bins, but I stayed seated, still and quiet, watching the aisle like a man waiting for a verdict. The crew had been eerily silent since the turbulence passed. No forced smiles, no unnecessary chatter. Just procedural efficiency, cold and methodical, and Madison didn't return to the first-class cabin during landing prep. Her absence was louder than any apology could have been. As we taxied to the gate, the purser made the final announcements. Then, with a pause in his voice, he added, "We'd like to thank Mr. Jonathan Miles for flying with us today." A few heads turned, a few claps followed. Not the kind that erupts from joy, but that quiet, knowing applause from people who had watched a moment unfold and seen something shift beneath the surface. The seatbelt sign clicked off. I didn't rush. I never do. I gathered my bag, slid my phone into my pocket, and stood. As I stepped into the aisle, the man who'd sat behind me placed a hand on my shoulder. "They'll think twice before trying that again," he said. I turned to him. "They shouldn't have to think twice. They should just treat people like humans." He nodded slowly. Yeah, you're right." I walked down the jet bridge, not flanked by security this time, not eyed like a threat, not questioned like an imposter. Just a man walking into an airport. And yet, it felt heavier than ever. At the gate exit, two Horizon Sky regional supervisors waited with clipped smiles. One extended his hand. "Mr. Miles, we've already begun internal proceedings. HR has confirmed termination and full compliance review will begin immediately at DF2 Terminal C." I shook his hand once. "Let the data guide the rest. I want a clean process, not a witch hunt." He nodded. "Understood." And that was that. No loud confrontations, no final scenes, just quiet consequences quietly delivered. Later that night, I sat alone in my hotel room overlooking Biscayne Bay, watching the reflection of the city lights ripple across the water. My phone sat face down beside me. I hadn't posted about the flight. I hadn't made a statement. I didn't need to. This wasn't about public spectacle. It was about personal boundaries. About being tired of shrinking myself so others could feel comfortable. About drawing a line. Not for me, but for everyone who looks like me and has to carry the weight of proof wherever they go. They saw a hoodie and sneakers and made their judgment. But my name, Jonathan Miles, carries more than titles or investments. It carries history. It carries my mother's prayers. My grandfather's hands calloused from rail yards. It carries every moment I kept my head down when I should have looked them in the eye and said, "I belong here." So if you've ever been mistaken, mislabeled, misjudged, hear me when I say this. You don't owe anyone proof of your worth. But if you ever do have to show them, make sure it's unforgettable. And if this story hit something in you, if it made you feel seen, angry, proud, or just awake, then do one thing for me. Click that like button. Drop your story in the comments. And subscribe if you believe respect should be given, not earned with receipts. Let's keep flying higher than they ever thought we could.